Cybernaptics, providing IT consulting, software development, and telecommunications infrastructure support, offering a holistic, in-depth technical expertise with business insights to the Mauritian businesses. University of Mauritius, shifting from teacher-centered to self-learning by students, focusing on competencies along with skills as learner outcome to better empower upcoming graduates. Also in focus this week, the test for the world's largest flight by Qantas. The airline will run test services of its planned 19 hours flight from Sydney to London. Over the recent years, through good governance strategies, many companies in the local arena have experienced an organic growth and established a solid reputation as an IT solution service provider with value-added services. And today, in this edition of Business Connect, we will be meeting with Mr. Viv Parayachi, the MD of Cybernaptics, which has been around the corner since 10 years now. Welcome to this new edition of Business Connect. At Cybernaptics, and we would like to start with, tell us about Cybernaptics.
Cybernaptics is an IT company, and it's now 10 years old. We've just celebrated our 10th anniversary. It's an IT company that provides IT services in a number of fields. I like to describe the company in terms of our revenue stream. So we have 4 revenue streams. The first one is in IT managed services, IT support and services, consulting and audit. Infrastructure, which is the hardware side, software development, and then business solutions. Business solutions are essentially software solutions which are off the shelves, but which we adapt to the client's need.
You just mentioned about the achievements of Cybernaptics. You just celebrated its 10 years.
Yes.
So what have been Cybernaptics' achievements in these past 10 years?
Yeah, well, there have been achievements on a number of fronts, depending on which angle you're viewing it. We've grown in terms of size, in terms of number of people that we employ. We've grown in terms of service portfolio, in the diversity of services that we provide. And we've grown also in terms of our client portfolio, which now touches almost all aspects of the local industry, whether it's the finance industry, it's the manufacturing sector, it's the retail sector, or the textile and tourism. So I would say that we are very well sort of like, embedded within the fabric of the Mauritian economy.
How is technology disrupting the businesses of today, or has it been an advantage?
Yes, of course. Technology is an enablement factor for businesses. I know that companies like to complain a lot about IT giving them such a headache, but if used properly and if used in a way that is directed towards the company's objective, it can bring about improved efficiency, it can reduce production costs, it can introduce better checks and balances, better control for the company. So I would say, yes, IT is a huge enablement factor for the industry, and it is having an impact. I can tell you that some jobs have disappeared in Mauritius because of technology. One of them would be the typist. We used to have a position in the government, in the civil service, called the typist, and now that has disappeared because of the word processor, for example. But like that, there are a number of things that technology is impacting, which is like in promoting automation, so you're using less manual labor, and it's creating new opportunities as well. One of the opportunities now that didn't exist maybe 20 years ago are like data analysts. Because technology is generating so much information and you need people to analyze it.
How much do you serve the local market?
At the moment, we are, I would say, mostly a local company. So we are strongly focused on the local market. We are looking beyond that now, but essentially today, the local market, as I mentioned, the different industry segments, like the financial sector, the retail sector, the hotel and the manufacturing sectors are sectors that for us represents the bulk of our activity.
You recently announced a partnership in the African region. Tell us about mainstream technologies.
You know, over the last 10 years, we've developed some skills and know-how in certain very specific areas of technology. And in some of them, we feel that we have now a competitive edge that we would like to take overseas to explore other markets. So one of them, for example, is in identity management and traceability based on barcode and RFID technologies. RFID are essentially little chips, little computer tags, little printed circuits tags that you can put in a label to stick on products or assets. And instead of like a barcode which you would scan, an RFID tag would emit a radio signal, so you could actually read it from a distance. So we've developed a strong competency in those fields over the last 10 years, and now we want to be able to take that into Africa, especially you know, markets like Kenya, which is a bit of a manufacturing hub on the East African coast. You know, you've got multinational like Nestle, like Unilever, and all those companies which are heavily using those kind of identity and traceability solutions. And the second area that we've developed some expertise over time is in IoT, the Internet of Things, which is the combination of smart devices and data analytics to actually build solutions.
How do you contribute to the regional and national economic progress?
Well, I think the direct contribution would be through the employment that we create. But secondly, I think the most important contribution, at least as far as the national economy is concerned, is in the local intellectual capital. You know, we always talk that Mauritius should be a gateway to Africa, that we should be investing or going into Africa. But, you know, to go into Africa, first of all, Africa is a huge market. We talk as if it's one country. It's not one country. It's multiple countries, each with its own culture and realities. But at the end of the day, we need to go into Africa with something. And that something for us in our field is intellectual capital. That they are the knowledge and the competencies that we've developed over time, and that we feel now of sufficient standard that maybe we can take it to those countries that might have a need for it.
What are the drivers behind the success of Cybernaptics?
I think I would say the employees, definitely, that would be one of the major drivers. I've been lucky in the sense that I've had, you know, I've been blessed with a very good team of people who've been working with me over time. You know, our clients also we've had a relationship beyond just client and supplier relationship. We've been friends at the end of the day. And, you know, we've been quite focused in terms of our goals because, you know, for me, I always consider myself as in the middle of a triangle where we have 3 points. One of the points are the employees, the other point are the shareholders, and the other point are the customers. And you need to align their interest. And I think we've been quite good over time in aligning the interest of those 3 points and try to keep the triangle, you know, balance. Mm-hmm. So that's how I would put it in a very pictorial way.
Where do you see Cybernaptics in the coming few years?
We really now want to look at Africa seriously as a market, but also in terms of diversification of our labor force. You know, Africa is an opportunity not just as a market, but also as providing resources, which we tend to neglect. And here in the technology field especially, we have a shortage of skill. And I feel that we would be probably employing people from our neighboring country, Madagascar or Kenya or South Africa or Zimbabwe. I think looking forward, this company would be a company that would have a regional footprint, not just in terms of customer base, but also in terms of employment base. And that's our dream anyway.
Is there any kind of training that you give to your staff, especially when you talk about specific competencies?
In fact, the training starts early. We have a regular program of internship where we take students from the university from their second year And you know, the internship here is actually very hands-on, where they get to work on real-world project under a mentor. And then once staff are hired, they are sort of like embedded in teams where there are more experienced colleagues working alongside them. And there is a combination of on-the-job training, but also formal training from time to time that they need to undergo, especially like with certain technologies that we use, which may be provided by the vendor or might be some other training that we subscribe to for those employees. So I would say in our job, it's continuous training. You never stop learning.
Qantas will run test services of its planned 19-hour flights to determine whether passengers and crew can withstand their marathon journeys. The airline wants to operate non-stop services from Sydney to London and New York by as soon as 2022. If launched, the services would be the world's longest direct flights. The trial flights will begin later this year, each carrying up to 40 passengers who will have their health monitored on the journey. The airline said non-stop flights from New York and London to Sydney would take about 19 hours each, subject to wind and weather conditions. It will conduct 3 test flights, and participants made of crew and Qantas employees will be fitted with wearable technology devices. Sleep patterns along with food and beverages consumption will be tracked to determine the impact on health and the body clock. The airline said it would make a decision on whether to start the flights by the end of this year. On the other hand, the US retail giant Amazon has been criticized by customers for increasing its use of plastic packaging. While UK supermarkets and shops try to use less plastic, Amazon earlier this year introduced a new range of padded plastic envelopes for deliveries. Amazon said it's Smart Pack and Recycled and that it is working to improve its packaging options. Concern is growing about the amount of plastic waste that ends up in the oceans, harming marine life. But Amazon said it urged customers to recycle its plastic envelopes along with its Prime Now plastic bags.
Today, we are at the conference room of the University of Mauritius. We are having a look at a new system that has been introduced by the university. It is the Learned Center Credit System, also known as LCCS. Let's meet one of the Pro-Vice Chancellors, Professor Sobi, who will explain us what is the difference and how it impacts the students, but also eventually the labor market. Professor Sanjeev Sobi, you are the Pro-Vice Chancellor Academia at the University of Mauritius, and as of the new academic year starting August 2019, the university has introduced a new system for the institution and also for students. It's called the Learner-Centered Credit System, also known as the LCCS. Can you please tell us what is the change about and give us a little bit more details about what it is all about?
In fact, this system exists already in other countries, in the European countries, in Australia as well. However, we have to make it in the context of Mauritius. In fact, we have been inspired by what we call the ECTS, the European Credit Transfer System, and then adopted it to the context of the University of Mauritius. The LCCS actually has been introduced as from August 2019, right, for this academic year. And all the programs of level 1 have migrated to this system, except some of those who are on accreditation, right? But basically, the old system is being revamped into the new one, which is the LCCS. Now, what is the LCCS all about? The LCCS, in fact, is more on the learner-centered, which means that we are shifting from the traditional teacher-centered, where the teacher comes, and explains to the students all the time, not sometimes giving enough time for the student to debate, to discuss, to appreciate the materials that have been discussed in class, right? So the learner-centered as it is, in fact, emphasizes more on self-learning. So the student actually gets more time on his own to learn the materials, to dig via the internet resources, or through directed learning, or through interaction, through internship, group work, teamwork. All these are creative learning, right? So that's one aspect. But the other important aspect also is about learning outcomes. Nowadays the emphasis is more on learning outcomes rather than just getting a degree. You would have already noticed in newspapers that when we have advertisement for job, what we are looking for are competencies, right? So we are looking for certain skills that students acquire. They no longer ask you that this student should hold a degree in this area. So everybody becomes at the level playing field if you have those same skills and competencies. So the learning outcomes that we are introducing in our degree programs, all of them have been revamped, as I said, are to empower the student, the learner, with certain skills to ensure that they acquire these at the end of the graduation, right? They become industry ready or economy ready.
With this new system, is the university looking to address the mismatch that is on the labor market, where postgraduates are looking for jobs, but also employers are looking for job seekers?
As you know, the University of Mauritius vision is the research engaged and entrepreneurial university. So we care a lot with building up relationship and engages with the industry. And the LCCS is actually the bridging gap, right? It bridges the gap between what we offer at the university and what the economy requires, and in particular the industry or the government. So once they are empowered with these skills, then we are addressing whatever mismatch that was occurring, right? So we understand the needs of the industry. So the traditional way of looking at things was, degrees that were just providing you with knowledge. But now these are the skills which are being required. So like leadership, like team building, like creativity, all these are important assets that the student will acquire through the LCCS in order to address whatever shortages that have been flagged to us by the industry. Since we are starting it at the university, we are trying to put more emphasis in terms of the skills, right, on the learning outcomes that they need to achieve. But based on experiences from other big countries that have got the ECTS, as I said earlier, these students are actually more, learned in the sense that they become more creative. If you look at the system in Singapore, for instance, they put all emphasis on practicals, on workshops, on things, and much less is actually emphasized on theory, right? Because theory provides you with the necessary grounding, but too much of it sometimes dilutes the actual skills that the student requires in order to seek a job or to be really a productive worker at the end of the day. So it has proven, so that's why we said we need to, empower our own students. As the world is becoming full of IT, technologically driven, so students also have to evolve in the same manner.
Professor Sobi, let's say that I'm enrolling for a course at the University of Mauritius, a course in an undergrad in economics and finance. What change does this bring for the student? Can you walk us through, please?
It's not only emphasis on the knowledge that the student needs to acquire, but on certain skills via learning outcomes. For instance, if a student who's enrolled in economics and finance, then that student is expected to have, for instance, quantitative skills. They need to have analytical skills, right? They need to have the appropriate jargon in order to write reports. So report writing is part of this. So these are learning outcomes which are well specified, and in the previous system these were not. So you would assess a student based on how much economics he knows, but not really tracking, well, can the student be a leader? So now you can have group work because they have assignments. So in a group of 4 or 5 students, you have somebody who will be the leader. So there will be assessment criteria which will match those outcomes, ensuring that that student actually has got not only the knowledge but necessary skills tomorrow to be able to drive a report, to drive a unit in an organization. There are specificities for each course. Like for instance, if you talk about learning outcomes for a degree in agriculture, for a degree in economics, a degree in, let's say, marketing, they will be different, right? There are faculty specificities which have to be taken into account. But at the end of the day, all of them have to specify their learning outcomes. Some might be the same. Some might be talking about leadership, team building, but there are other skills which are needed, right? Like I said, in the case of economics, the quantitative skills. In others might be in terms of the communication skills. But what is also important is the emphasis is that we have a system where the student can have, more access to, let's say, directed learning, internet sources, not necessarily relying solely on the contact hours, which is a transfer from the traditional system, right? The student becomes independent, become productive, assess the material better than just sitting in class and listening to the lecturer. That's what it is all about.
Does this also mean that each course has a different structure that has been set up to meet the expectations of the university, but also of the labor market?
Yes. Just before I shift from there, I have to tell you that what we are trying to link up when we say the LCCS is one system, which is major. But the LCCS is also, let's say, a bridge to other, big projects that the university is undertaking, right? For instance, I will tell you that we are linking up with the industry. So internships, they are very important. Placements are very important. Now, we have programs which are tailor-made with the industry. So that's where we also need to address these skills, the soft skills and the technical skills. Let me tell you, over and above the technical skills which we have under the LCCS, we are also introducing some other aspects like soft skills, which is over and above the curriculum, just to ensure that, well, these graduates will be able to become not rough diamonds, but perfect diamonds for the market to buy, right? And everything is in line with our internationalization. With the LCCS, actually, we can mount dual degree programs with other universities. We can improve our recognition across the world. We can have exchange of students, other students from other countries coming to follow our programs and transfer their credits on their degree program. And similarly, Mauritian students can go abroad, follow a curriculum where they get the credit equivalents when they come back. So I would also say that students are not being prepared for our own market, but the international labor market. Because once you are an international company, you might be based in Mauritius. When you look at what the students have covered in the degree program, you say, that's the guy we need. That's the person we're looking for. So that's very much within it. And some other projects that we have, as you've heard already, is about the Agri-Tech Park, right? Is a major breakthrough which we are trying to channel. The Vice Chancellor is working very hard with the Faculty of Agriculture and many other partnering organizations. And I have also to add one more thing recently, that the university, and in fact the Vice Chancellor, has come up with 2 task forces, one which is on the Industry 4.0, and the other one is actually in terms of sustainable development, very much in line with what's happening abroad in other universities. So everything actually is moving in terms, gravitating towards a system where there is coherence. We want that to be, emphasized so that students are participant, the industry, the government, and the university. which is a quadruple helix model.
Oh, fantastic. There's quite a good feel factor around it, I guess.
Yes, very much, very much.
The university had announced a few projects for the university last year. Can you give us an assessment of these projects that have already been accomplished, those that are in progress, and what are the upcoming ones?
You have heard of the project of the e-library, electronic library, right? It was announced, you know, in the past, a few years back, 2 years back, in fact, when the Vice Chancellor took office. In fact, it's completed. We have a good collection of our archives, dissertations, the Mauritiana section, books. All of them now are actually have been migrated to an electronic system. So students have access on the campus, they can have access to a smartphone. When you sit in your office, you can have access. Even all the public TIs can have access, all the general public, but they have to subscribe. There is a fee for that. So this is a project which is over. The photovoltaic project, which you have heard of, a university cannot do without or innovating in terms of sustainable development. So we are trying to reduce our electricity bill. So, but also to provide, more insights into what we are doing. So that project is also is over. You would see the library roof actually is covered with solar panels. So this has been done. There are some major projects which are ongoing. Also, we are thinking about for instance, the halls of residence, which is very important for university. So that is still being championed, right? And we have moved ahead of it, but still we need to get the finance and the partners for that. So these are the major issues that we have. We have some more, and when time comes, we'll share them with you.
Professor Sobi, thank you very much for your time. All the best. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to the end of this episode of Business Connect. I hope you have enjoyed it as much as I have. If you wish to review this episode, you can always visit the website of the MBC, which is the www.mbcradio.tv. Until the next program, goodbye.